thought it was interesting coming from someone as esteemed as he is, and you can read about him on Canvas, but it was very powerful, and it was kind of a very poignant interview to think about really technology and what the ultimate impact can be, because there aren't enough of those conversations. In this class, I know we're talking about how we can apply it, because we know that that's where products and services are going to go. But I think it's important for us to keep in mind the social consequences that we often don't as we proceed into the new. So just wanted to share that. You can take a look, any of you interested can read the book. And without further ado, Leon, of course, has been with us, I believe, for all 4 cohorts. Is that right, Leon?
Right.
So it evolves each time. He's one of those gurus. Educated at USC in machine data, machine learning, AI.
Well, it wasn't called machine learning at that time.
What was it called?
They don't have a name for it yet.
Okay. So every year he takes a look at this, and since he works way into the future, but he's one of those not only works into the future, but applies it in his own laboratory. And so I think what he's going to share with you today is how he's applied it to prove to himself what can happen, or the power of it. So without further ado, I'll let Leon share it instead of my sharing it.
Sure.
You have your mic on?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great.
Thanks again, Kathy, for inviting me here, and thank you all for coming. This is my 4th time I talk in front of classroom like this, so I think I'm getting better this time. The 3rd, I'm so glad whoever that here on the last year part, I tried to make it too complicated, so this time I tried to more focus on the pragmatic side and on the implementation and less about theory. So before we get started, I want to kind of give you warning that this is kind of be different than what typically your presentation. I look at the curriculum, and I found out that most of the talk preceding me, it was talking mostly about material and production, and this is mostly the one that I'm going to talk to is what happened after the production is done and you produce it. So with that in mind, I would like to have asking people for participation and asking a couple of questions before we get started. So how many here planning to design products in the future? Great. Keep it up. How many are those thinking about doing this thing using typically a retail store? Okay. How about direct to consumer? Awesome. So those people, this is for you guys. But the rest of you guys, you can also learn about what's the impact of technology and also how to adapt in an ever-changing landscape. So let's get started. So I was reading about history in preparation for this, and I was under the impression that history, it's all about study about the past. However, the more I learned about it, it's the critical part is history is the study of change over time. So the key point here is change. Look for change in society, look change for in technology and so forth, so you can adapt better. So with that in mind, I'm gonna kind of rewind time 32 years ago. Bill Gates, trust me, I remember this. That's how old I am. Bill Gates was just crowned to be the richest person in the world. And the reason why he was able to do this, I see a lot of young people here, but when I was your age, we are using mainframe to access computing power. And this is literally, it's stack of paper and you submit it to computer and wait for 1 day before you get result. So when Bill is coming out with Microsoft, they basically changed the way you access technology. Before that, you have to have work for big company to be able to access computer. With a PC, you are pretty much can take it home and start creating your own computer, and that was revolutionized everything. And that's the main reason why he became the richest man in the world 32 years ago. Now, fast forward this year. Everybody probably know him by now. Officially, 2018, Jeff Bezos became the richest person. And it literally takes 32 years of time to really signify the transfer from PC dominant world into internet. And the reason why is internet has replacing PC as a way to access computing. It no longer matters if you have a desktop PC and so forth. You can access anywhere as long as you have internet. And then once you start learning from this is that every single time there's a vacuum in the technology, there's a new one coming in, rush in, and replace. The most important thing to do is to identify those ahead of time and adapt to it. Because, sorry to warn you, anything you learn right now, by the time you graduate it could be obsolete. So with that in mind, like I said, this is not traditional presentation. You wanna be able to adapt yourself, equip yourself with skill set that's adaptable. That's kind of my point. So I don't have to talk about this a lot, but you've probably seen it happen in retail. Internet is destroying the way we shop today. Sears and everybody else, malls, it's closed, not just in US, but around the world. So today I'm going to kind of mention about this, but before I kind of talk about it, I want to kind of tell you my humble beginning. This is me. I received my master's degree from USC, computer science. Researching at that time, nobody knows about it, a subject called artificial intelligence. So I was literally coding the first AI using Prolog. And I was like, after working for that for 2 or 3 years, I was like, what a waste of my time. But after finished the school, I went to work and happened to work with aerospace company, and I learned the first time building an e-commerce website. And once I start seeing the internet wave coming in, I quit the company and start my own business. So this is me in 2002. Literally, we don't have a cloud. I have to build my own kind of Googleplex, whatever you call it, in my office. And like I said, I'm not a marketer. I'm more like an engineer. So it happened to happen, accidentally create a marketing company, grow the stores to $1 million in 6 months. And at that time, Google not even know how to make money yet. So we learned how to market through Overture. I don't know if you know that. Overture later on bought by Google. And their products, they call AdWords. So using AdWords at that time, I was just lucky enough. In fact, the story with that picture, we were like just coding, and we got our first order coming in, and we thought somebody hacked our system. But it was literally overnight. We launched September, and by time Christmas, we owned the keyword toys at that time, and literally get all the sales coming in. And it was a learning process, and so forth. So that's kind of my humble beginning. What I do now is I help brands, typically startups, on how to take advantage of direct sales to consumer. I built it on top of Shopify Plus platform, and the most important thing, we use a lot of data-driven and AI. So we built it. We want to make sure that small business, startup, or native brand can take advantage of this. By the way, if you have any question, please stop me. I love kind of conversation. It works better that way. So this is some of my customers. A lot of them, it's hybrid, so they're probably already selling on a retail store, and they move now to direct. And some of them just completely start from scratch. So today, I want to talk about 3 things. How to be able to compete in this ever-changing Amazon era, everybody's calling it. If you have a brand, how do you take advantage of it, and how to position yourself. Second thing is I'm going to show you reason why you can compete better with Amazon, and also kind of prepare you for the next up-and-coming AI. And finally, I want to leave you with 5 things to focus if you end up building your own brand. Okay. So before we talk about native brand, let's talk about history of retail. This is the first retail store created by John Wanamaker's. I Googled it. 1875. His idea is put a lot of brand products into one single shelf and making it as a destination so everybody can visit and then buy it from one place. Now, if you fast forward till today, there's not really changed a lot. And that's why internet can really shift the whole experience, because they move faster, they eliminate so before I said eliminate, so this is what it looks like pre-internet distribution. Some of you probably, if you work with apparel company, you will see that this is a very typical even till today. So you have a wholesaler, and a wholesaler typically buy in bulk, and then you send it to retail, which is buy even less, and then you come as a consumer. And what's here is, important part of it, is that the sales and marketing, it's outsourced. So as a brand, you never really have to sell your product directly to your customer. All you need to do is build it. Now, those things have obviously changed. In the era of e-commerce, if you don't know how to do sales and marketing, or you don't want to do it yourself, then your option is putting in the Amazon Marketplace. Has anybody put their product, at least doing Amazon Marketplace at all? Okay, so it's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of people like it because brands love it, because you can literally have access to customers, Amazon customers. Literally overnight, you build your pay Amazon, I think $150, and then you'll be in front of the Amazon store. You can have their free customer support, return, book, shipping, even fulfillment if you choose their Amazon fulfilled by Amazon. So I actually researched this 5 years ago. My first product, I sold it on Amazon Marketplace, and it was growing really great until one day I figured out something. So what happened is that I found out the dark side of selling in Amazon. So with Amazon, what you don't realize is you're actually renting their customer. Amazon block any access to their customers. So when you sell, you have no direct access to the customer. While selling your products, Amazon start collecting your information, and in exchange your sales, they are building their data set, and this data set is they can use to determine if they want to coming in to your category. So this is when Amazon start figure out that a lot of people want to do free cheap electronics, they launch Amazon Basic. When they're looking for people who are looking for premium apparel, Amazon Element, bedding, and the rest of this thing is an apparel. This is what they call Amazon private label. So it's owned by Amazon, but it's actually powered with your kind of data, sales data. And in marketing, especially digital marketing, data is the mass weapon of destruction. I mean, the more data you have, the better you can sell, the better margin you have. And overall, Amazon already have many, many years data about many, many people. And that alone gives them unfair advantage. Imagine if they go after, they already know your market and they can go to doing this. So Amazon is, selling by Amazon, it's one of the options to do that. But I want to kind of talk today about an alternative to that, if you don't mind. So I want to talk about native brand. This is probably well known to be like direct to consumer, but I want to kind of go beyond that. Native brand is a brand that doesn't use any third-party sales channel. Design, build, market, and even have their own store. So this is not necessarily digital. Could be a store by itself. So it will work. Native brand will work because customers getting tired of. Well, let me back a little bit. Amazon advantage is in convenience and speed, and convenience and cost. So they can knock down the price really quick, and you can get your product fast. However, customers getting, but they don't design for really low volume products. That's why they are private selling. They're waiting for you guys to come in first until they know that there's a huge volume. Then they're coming in with their own sales. So with their own data, and then they figure out if it's profitable. So yeah, and then what happened is that consumer is craving for more niche products. The more personalized it is, the more customized it, the more they want it. They're willing to pay it for experience. So if you start being creative about it, thinking about experience, how do you sell it? Selling is now part of the selling point. So when you talk with them, make yourself different. And also with the power of social media and mobile apps, you can pretty much market at really low cost. Any questions so far? So let's talk about the success story. This is a couple of things that, recent story, if you don't know, Kylie Jenner's movement watch and Marshawn Lynch. So just for example, Kylie Jenner's is just, the company itself just grossing close to $1 billion, running by only 8 people, completely native brand, and owning 100% of the company. Movement watches was just bought by Movado, I think, and for $200 million. And literally, this is like 5, 10 people in a dorm room running the whole thing. So if you can be creative, the key point here is creative, and think like I would say millennial, but it's supposed to be younger, Generation Y, like you guys, and start figure out what's missing in Amazon or any other big digital retail. You could really take advantage of it. The technology's here, the customer's ready. In fact, one of this advertising bureau just proclaimed, I think it was a month ago, they are just, look at the number, direct brand, the native brand now is bigger than the indirect brand, as you can figure out Sears closing and so forth. So, and it took almost 140 years to do this. And something to think about. The pattern is here, and it's good idea to be direct. So this is 5 things that I kind of want to share with you, what I've learned in the last 3 years. Typically, I help B2B company, but in the last 3 years, I'm just focusing on a direct and a native brand. And this is 5 things that I learned from working in the trench. So let's see. What to do when you want to become native brand and what to focus on, because there's a lot of out there. And every time you talk to people, especially the experienced one, the first thing they say is selling it on Amazon. So just want to show it to you. There's an alternative. Number 1, start with insanely great product. This is why you guys here. You guys have a lot of teachers, Kathy, and all people that you bring it in. You guys know how to build the right products. But typically, and I work with a lot of brands, typically their product development is very sequential. So you're probably working in your own office, get some information, build the products, kind of like it, send it to overseas to get produced, and have it sent back. However, typically when I get there to help them market their products, they have a full of warehouse that need to be sold and ask me what to do. And by that time, it's way too late. So that's what I'm here for, just kind of let you know, don't do that, because we have a lot of technology that can help you with. So number 1, be iterative. So when you develop your products, make sure to run using digital tools like placing an ads, for example, to get constant feedback from your customers. There's a lot of technology out there like A/B testing and creating MVP products that if you want to I don't want to go deeper right now, but there's a lot of reading about it. You can literally produce products. You can design and market fit the product without ever producing it, and only producing it or producing it on demand based on the customer requirement. And all of this thing can be done literally in 1 to 2 weeks to get some feedback. and then incorporate this thing into your product development cycle, and so forth. That way, all of the data that you're collecting during this product development can be used for the next phase of marketing. And then by this time, it's so much easier to fix the problem if you have a market fit issue. Okay? Number 2, invest in your customer journey and think like your customer. A lot of people always assuming, well, I shouldn't say assuming. A lot of brands that I've been working on, they're assuming sales is only one-time operation. You see the ads, you buy. What we found out that with the explosion of mobile apps, smart TV, smart car, I don't know, every day there's a new one. Your customer, the way they consume data, it's actually very predictable if you spend the time. So try to map your customer journey. Think like a customers. I saw if you sell this product for people like your peers, that's super easy. Ask a couple people and then figure out where they spend their time. Second thing is that in order for you to, once you get your customer journeys mapped out, at least ready to go, test it and using the previous data, you're running market fit. And most important thing is you have to think like a media company that happen to sell products. So if you have a team, make sure you have content people in there, because that's what I see so many times. Like you're focused on creating product development, and when the time ready, you don't have enough content people. When I say content, it's prolific content creation, weekly. You see what happened with Instagram story. People daily, 24 hours product creation, and then try to think the way your customer consuming. Right now, everybody addicted to this digital platform that we have in our phone. You have to balance it out with creating content, and finally, your message has to be more spot on. Please Google Hero Journey, and a brand story. Really 2 good books to read about how to sell in this really noisy environment. So, find their pain instead of talking about your features. I'm pretty sure you guys know this stuff by now. So, I don't know if you know about tofu, mofu, bofu. So this is like typical template to think about when you do your customer journey. You started with tofu, which is top of a funnel. It's not a food. Middle of a funnel and a bottom of the funnel. And each of those things has usually reside in different sales channel. So tofu, for example, once you run your test, typically happen in YouTube or Facebook. So if you think about doing awareness, don't spend your money on something that doesn't really do well with top level awareness. Middle of the funnel, this is when usually your customer, well, top of funnel usually when the customer learn about your brand and your brand exists. So you don't really have to do a lot in this case. You just have to say that, hey, I'm here, I'm selling apparel. Now, middle of the funnel is the place that really where all the decision making happen. The customer usually decided whether they want to, if they usually typically want to know what your feature is, they want to compare this thing with your competitors, and finally they also want to know like what other peers, your friends, testimonial. So when you know you have to create a middle of the funnel, you have to know the right content to build. Otherwise, a lot of times the mistake happen is that serving the wrong content at the wrong channel. So middle of the funnel is all about evaluation. This is when don't create a website, create like a comparison page, create a testimonial page and drive your ads there. And finally, bottom of the funnel, this is when the easiest part happen. This is when you have done all your heavy homework and your customer is now convinced that you are the right person to purchase. All they need a little bit nudge. And this is when you work with getting like offers or 24 hours countdown, all those nifty stuff. And all of this journey is just basically a hack. I call this human, we are all algorithm. You know, as a data scientist, we're always looking at the, you know, like people buying pattern, and I can really, you know, I always starting looking at sales coming in as algorithm, and with this algorithm, I know what the right content to push to you, and literally can, if you do it right, you can hack people to buy your product. You can really mind switching people, and I've been there several times. I look at it like, I don't want to buy this thing. 15 minutes later, I'm buying like 2 or 3 of this. So I don't know if you guys have been there, but this is, combining this with AI, you can be easily kind of help out to make a decision. So it's very important to know what the technology can do. We don't even go deeper because there's a lot of technology behind this. Google, Facebook, they have algorithm just to suggest you what truth is by manipulating your time feeds, for example. You know, Amazon looking at the way you pattern searching, and they look at all your friend buying, they can figure out what's most likely you will buy. And those alone has a lot of power. And this, for me, and then you start thinking about this like a funnel. So this thing could be starting like 1 million people have to go through, went through top of funnel, then you funnel it down to like 100,000 and 10,000. By the time you get to here, you pretty much run the whole kind of like qualification really quick. So, and then when you start doing that way as a funnel, what happens is that you save your ads money and so forth. So this is primarily what I do almost 24 hours by 7, look at the algorithm, and the algorithm drive all of this. Any question about this?
Yes. What do you think about like how this applies to like Kickstarter, like Indiegogo and things like that? Is that just like a platform to do all this, or?
Yes, it's the same thing. It works the same thing to retail. It works the same thing with anything that even political. You do this way. It's basically, if you think about it, to simplify this, is how you layer your approach. You don't want to try to do all at once. You know, a lot of people, when I say this, they send you a video and then they tell you like in 15 minutes, and usually it doesn't work. So by doing this, and usually, I don't know if you heard about those technology called cookies, right? So what happened is that we know that you passed the first one. If you see an ad if you see an ad and you don't click on it, we don't want to target you anymore because we consider that thing as you don't really have you don't have interest on it. So, but when you start clicking on it, that's when retargeting happens, and you've seen it many, many times how people doing this. And retargeting is getting smarter and smarter every day. I mean, it has, as I'm collecting more data, I become more precise about whether I want to serve you or not, the ads. So typically, and this is kind of relating to the third one, the fourth one actually, which I'm going to talk about. It's what I call smart ads, how to create an ads that's really smart. So that's what I talk about buyer's journey. This should be your map. Before you finish any product development, try to think about it. Where your customers spend most of their time when they browsing. Where they spend more of their time when they want to reviewing and making down select on the products, you know, and so forth. Did I answer your question? And yeah, actually we're going to talk about Kickstarter after this, so I'm going to leave it there.
I mean, I've been in his office when he's working with one of his companies, and think about the dashboard for, you know, tracking stocks, and
right.
That is what this is like. It isn't like there's this gap. You're watching this behavior and these algorithms in real time.
Right. And each algorithm working in like genetic algorithm, so the more successful the algorithm, it get pushed up to the top. So it's automatically natural select themselves. So, and this is just the beginning. As data getting bigger, we have more prediction, better suggestion, and optimization. Yes?
This might be a bigger question, but is it true that our technology is listening to our conversations or giving us information? Like I have an Alexa. Is it true that companies are taking information from our conversations that we're having with these technologies in our helps?
I would say no, but nobody knows. I'm pretty sure that at this point right now they don't want to. Usually when this happens, usually because of programming error, and I want to just give them a credit at this point, but we don't know what the future look like, right? In fact, I think we have even ourselves, we don't consider this thing as a really big deal. We're so used to giving away our privacy for free apps and so forth. It's kind of remind us, I was just coming back from a blockchain, block identity, and so forth conference that we talk about how important is privacy, especially for the next generation, because we are kind of giving away our privacy like it's nothing. Somebody mentioned like it's remind them when the first time people come to US, somebody buy the whole big land of Manhattan for 3 beats of, give it to Indians and take the whole thing, and they don't know how valuable it is. And as we go into, I don't want to go detail about it, but right now we are storing all our sales information. But in the future, we can store our biometric. We can store our health data. And nowadays, they already equip the house, the home with all this smart home. It's kind of scary. So currently, unfortunately, the internet is dumb. I mean, you're giving away information. Once you give it to them, that's it. I mean, they own it and they use it. With the current information available just today, they have enough about you. So they don't have to go that drastic yet, but the key point is we don't know in the future. So next one is when you're building a native brand, make sure it's unique. Your customer experience doesn't have to be just a website. And I'm going to give you a couple. This is probably the most important thing to do, because at the end of the day, your customer want to feel special. And then digital is great, but sometimes it's better to be in person. So there's a couple, two companies that I'm going to talk about that you probably heard about it. I'm going to case study them as a really great sample. So I was just come back from LA about 2 months ago, and I was just researching this company called Glossier. Anybody heard about it? Okay, cool. Yeah, I was completely shocked when I went there, because there's line all the way to the curb, and this is in and I was like went there, and then the whole thing is totally pink and so forth, and the way they're doing things is completely different than typical any e-commerce or direct to consumer. They kind of reverse upside down. For example, they use influencers for marketing instead of heavy ads. They save tons of money on that. If you want to purchase you in nearby their store, they want you to come and experience it. So in the whole store, it's kind of remind me to Apple Store, but minus the products. So they don't have the products in the store. When you go there, they have everything that they have, but in a really limited quantity. And when you purchase it, it's delivered next day to your home. And that's for them is to create those unique buying experience. And they have this weird things when you finish purchase, they give you this extra bag that's so unique, that those kind of stuff that make the difference, because Amazon will never do that, for example. The next one I'm going to talk about, this is the brand that I'm working on. It's actually one-person brand. Company named Marche Studio here in Portland. And the way they're doing it, they use a Kickstarter plus party soiree kind of approach. So in order for you to purchase their products, because they're built in USA, they cost more and it's custom made. And then it literally takes a month to produce your stuff. So this is not pre-production. They have 10 of them, and they have this soiree where you can come, kind of similar to Glossier. When you come, and you can touch the products, and then you put your own. We have heavy customization. So unlike any other brand, this brand is like customizing everything to the max. So you can put your own kind of like wallet, card, and color, and so forth. And what happened is that it kind of used the advantage of production in US, and then kind of build it up. And everything is Kickstarter model, so you have to pay first, and then 20 days later you get the products. And you get the products by coming to their soiree party, or they can mail it to you if you don't live nearby. So anything you can think of that it's kind of gets you identity, gets you those things to remember from your customers. That's something to think about while you're designing your products. So for example, Marche, when they're designing it, they already designed this thing for heavy customization. So imagine if they use this in a kind of like her own time, like focusing on herself and then producing 1,000 of them, or 10,000, whatever it is. Instead, she producing it by quarter. So something to think about, a model that you can use, and so forth. And finally, smart advertising. And smart advertising is what I kind of alluded in previously, is that when I was doing this in 2001 or 2, I literally using one ads, and we spent almost, at that time, this is 20 years ago, $100,000 for the whole year, running the same ads over and over again. And at that time, internet was so new. We have a click-through rate like 50%. I don't know if you know the click-through rate, but today's click-through rate is in like 3%. Sometimes you do 1 to 3%. If you like 3%, is like you're top notch. And the number keep on going down. And what I learned about this is that be contextual when you deliver your ads. Don't carpet bomb your customers. I mean, I've seen brand that literally take one photo shoot and that's it. They keep on running the ads over and over again to everybody. With machine learning, you require different type of sales or marketing team. You have to be nimble, you have to be quick, and you have to have creating many ads and many content. So that's why video is the best to do, because video, you can create multiple derived product from it. You can create image from it. You can create Instagram story out of it. And once you feed this thing into the algorithm can push it to the right place. Because literally we are pushing like 40, 50 ads in a week, and then this is done by computer. Because used to be we do it by hand, but nowadays it's run by computer and fully automated. And it automatically looking for a way to save a little bit more penny or cents on the cost per leads. And finally, relationship commerce. So relationship commerce is, if you want to be native brand, you have to do it for long run. If you're selling commodity products like just a t-shirt, by God, please go to Amazon or just do anything to keep your volume high. But to be in a native brand, you have to be really unique, and also being able to create one-of-a-kind products. You have to invest in those long-term, especially technology, and also kind of always looking for those underpriced channel. For example, right now the underpriced channel is YouTube. The cost per lead is quite low right now, and over time, these things, as you're probably gonna see, this thing, ads money keep on become more competitive because they run on auction. And think about mobile, and then looking for the new up and coming like chat-based commerce, Facebook Messenger, and then Google Pay, Apple Pay, stuff like that. And most important thing is that while you're doing this, collect any data that you can, because you will need it. So one takeaway, I know this is a lot of stuff, and when I start working on it, I was like, my God, this is like, how can I, this is too much, right? So I just want to give you one takeaway. Be creative. And you guys so young, so I would say young people always creative, because you can always reinventing yourself, and that's kind of like the best time to learn this thing. Anything you see here can be totally redesigned. If somebody said it cannot be done, question that, because with the digital, you can pretty much innovate at any any stage of your products, your development, market. Even if once you develop it, you can still innovate it by just innovating the delivery part, fulfillment, and so forth. So always ask those questions and be creative. Don't take anything for granted. If you talk to some expert and they said this is the way to go, test it first. There's probably cost you $200 to $500. Test it using Google Ads and Facebook Ads, and you can really know the answer for sure. Because I can guarantee you this thing change almost on a weekly basis, and I'm on top of it, and I'm still feel like I'm behind. So as long as you be creative, as long as you're willing to learn, and as long as you're willing to make mistakes, you will find your answer. So I have 2 more slides to go. So the reason why native brand is going to be great for future startups is by being creative, you are no longer need a lot of money to get started. I mean, I deal with a lot of VC capital and how hard it is to raise money. If you be creative and you use the right native brand strategy that like I mentioned here, and you can pretty much narrow down your expense. You see, I think, famous example, Kylie Jenner, she only running it with 8 people. And everything else it's optimized using technology. Communicate directly with your customer. You have your own creative permission to directly talk to your customer. Sometimes I work with a brand, and they say, well, we cannot do that, Leon, because the store doesn't like it. Amazon doesn't like it, and so forth. So the advantage of being native brand is being able to say that, hey, I'm going to do it my way. I think that's the best way. Of course, it's better margin for you. You know, you don't 50% of those things go to retail. That doesn't know how to sell your product anyway. So you better keep it to yourself and either create a better experience for your customer or lower their costs. So let me see. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. So this is pretty much it. If you have any question, that's kind of my favorite time. Go ahead.
How will net neutrality changing affect native brands, do you think? Yeah.
Sorry.
Net neutrality changing, affect, the native brands, in their ability to, or maybe not at all.
I personally think net neutrality is related to, it's related to the identification. I'm being pragmatic with the net neutrality things. I think even Verizon and Comcast and so forth, they're doing this thing for business. At the end of the day, depending on how the law is crafted, or somebody overturn it again, it's gonna be just cost of doing business. The most costly part is not this net neutrality. It is kind of offended, it's
because that's where you start to say, okay, well, if I'm going to sell a shoe through markets, then the channels start to become a thing.
Getting better algorithm, and that's for us is bigger than that. And if for some weird reason you have to pay more for it, I'm pretty sure they can fund it, those things in the cycle. Hopefully, I answer your question. Yes.
Relationship with your customer, what do you mean aggressive investment in the underpriced channel?
So what happened is that when you talk to your customer intimately, constantly, you start looking at how did they consume your content. Because before they buy from you, they want to have trust from you. So how do you do that? They have to be, you literally talking like a friend. And what happened is that over time, start looking at those patterns, we call it underpriced channel. An underpriced channel is a channel that not too many marketer knows yet. For example, YouTube is very, very, this is pro tip, guys. Pro tip to remember. YouTube is very, very good for review and product review and product decision making. And a lot of people right now, they're doing this thing on Facebook, for example. YouTube is, the cost is almost 70% cheaper than Facebook. So knowing all of this thing, collect your data, asking the right question, and once you see the data, it will tell you which one is the best way to reach out to your customer. Because there's a lot of ways to reach out to the customer. The important thing, how do you optimize it? And you can only do this thing if you build in strategy to constantly talk to your customer. Have a good social media people, influencer, and build a good strategy about it.
Thank you.
You were saying that you were doing a lot of B2B before focusing on this. Would some of this be applicable to newer ways that business to business is sort of working?
When When you say B2B, you mean like having a retail wholesaler in the middle, or you selling a product between company to company? Okay.
Or I was curious about the wholesale.
Yeah. I personally, the wholesale is kind of like it's getting, the reason why you do wholesale is because you don't have a distribution. And right now, I can tell you right now, distribution is even REI, for example, you can pretty much do almost the same effect if you want to do it. I mean, it costs you money, but it's better that way. You kind of pay upfront than to use it. Actually, this is Kathy asked me the same question. We still living in this kind of like a hybrid approach. So sometimes, yes, we have to maintain those things, those two channels open. Like I have a brand that both selling direct and they're also selling on Amazon.com, for example, and they're also selling on retail. But every time I do this thing, it just hamper us to do really like unique customer experience, because you're going to compete with this retail, and they're going to have like you have to sit down with them and explain them what you do. If you're doing like a sales, for example, you got to ask their permission first, and that's kind of go against native brand. However, I worked with a brand that doing this, and we slowly kind of migrate them into the next generation. So they started with like 10% direct and 90% of a retailer, and we over time now do 50-50. So it takes time, and you don't need to do right away. But I'm just saying to you, you're going to be hampered with a lot of those legacy, the value. What do you call it? I forgot the name of it. The minimum value that you can advertise and so forth. MAP, minimum advertised price. So that's what it is.
I have a question about the advertisements, like how, for example, like Kylie Jenner, her advantage is that she already had this platform of followers, so she was able to ask questions and test out through her existing platform that she has. But how would you do it if you're more like Glossier, where they started Facebook ads to early people before they launched? They target people via Facebook heavily, but how do they build the algorithm? Because they didn't start with such a huge following.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start somewhere, and I think this is why it's very difficult to basically, for example, compete with the 4 big company. They have many years of data, right? So like I said, people who has the most data win this price. But as long as you use native brand kind of terminology, and you're not competing directly with Amazon, by the way, right? You're kind of creating your own channel. So this is kind of like Amazon doesn't care about you. You're not competing with it. So as long as you start it and you start collecting data, you're not gonna get all of them in one ads or one campaign. But over time, you're gonna get better and better. I remember reading this book called anyway, I can't say the book's name. But they say something about you go from, people always think that you go from wrong to right, but in actuality, and the same thing with the best algorithm AI can write, they go from wrong to less wrong. So over time, you're getting closer to the right, but you never get there. The computer algorithm is not perfect. It's not even remotely it's probably 70%, can predict this. But they are better than human. So when you use it, you feel like, oh my God, they know me, and so forth. But with this new technology coming in, you actually can build advantage if you start really early on. Because nowadays, what you don't know is all of this AI technology is now become commodity. You can use it. Before that, you have to kind of with a big company.
I have a question. So Black Friday is coming up. How would you leverage social channels to your brand during seasons? Or does it matter if it's time sensitive, or does it not matter in regards to seasons?
So Black Friday is depending on your brand. Some brand, it has no time sensitive. For example, apparel, or dog food, for example, or stuff like that. You're gonna buy it every 2 or 3 weeks anyway, right? Then there's apparel, which is very cyclical, and so forth. So for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, it's all about knowing your sales cycle. And again, data help. I usually like it when a customer has data or Google Analytics, every single data, at least 360 days, then I can use that thing to predict the future. And I'm knowing what's the best time to post ads, best time to run sales, and so forth. For the beauty with AI is only as good as the data that you feed it in. So you want to make sure your data that you feed it in, we call it clean data, garbage in, garbage out, and so forth. And once you have those things and you have built up a data-driven process, you become almost invincible because you have those kind of connections. And that's what I've seen. It's getting faster and faster. The better brand, you can see that they double down on data big time. The one that doesn't make it is the one that give it to Amazon or something like that, and they end up buying by a bigger company.
Yes.
So I remember like 3-4 years ago, you could still run Facebook ads at a relatively low cost, but it's certainly ramping up. How do you think as those ad costs begin to rise, will there also be a rise of like the barrier to entry for digitally native brands?
Well, okay, that's a great question. There's two types of ads. We call it organics and paid. What you're talking about is paid. Native brands typically run on organics, and they're usually free. Now it's harder, take longer time, it takes more content, and you have to be on top of your game. But organic traffic usually stay in the top funnel, and that's usually the hardest one to do, to crack. So native brand, you have to have at least one of your team that really know their organic strategy. And this is huge because anybody can place an ad. But creating, that's what Kylie Jenner is so good, because she used everything organics and very little of ads.
And then with the bottom of the funnel, you talked about generating sales like through the use of coupons and stuff.
Right.
There has to be like, as a native brand, do you have to be cautious of discounting your product to kind of erode like the integrity of it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this used to be our problem, but because AI is such a sophisticated, we know when to give it to. So we went through a lead scoring process with AI. So we know, for example, certain people, based on their behavior, on how they're using the website or they go through the ads, we can determine if we should give them the discount. And the discount automatically, rapidly adapted. So by doing this, we kind of manage the brand identity. What I found out with native brand, there's actually little discount. Because you kind of already said that you're not going to compete with Amazon, which is I'm not going to compete with price, and I'm going to be slower. So once they go through this funnel, by the time they go to BOFU, the bottom of the funnel, they're already conditioned for this because you replace with all those pricing and convenience with experience. So as long as they buy that storyline, that's kind of hard, but if you can do this, price usually doesn't matter. I mean, we can sell like a T-shirt that has this influencer name in there, and you can jack it up to like $160, nobody can complain. And we do even limited delivery, and people even want to raise the price and so forth. So that's the beauty of native brand. Yes.
As native brand sort of starts coming like the new standard, and is pretty even sort of generating a lot of like trend buzz. What's after that? Like, do you think there's a cap where D2C will sort of expire, and then?
Yeah, we don't know. We haven't been there yet, so I'm kind of like predicting the future. I think what happened is there's going to be a place for native brand and also Amazon or those big retailers. I mean, for these short terms, I think like 10 years. And what I think about it before we can move to the next chapter, we got to fix the internet problem, which is right now we are giving away privacy. Basically, Google it's not a company, they're giving away the product. So that's going to break down all of the costs associating with privacy. And what I'm feeling right now, privacy is getting bigger problem. I mean, my biggest headache right now is not like a net neutrality, for example. I'm worried that somebody hacked the server and download every single customer list credit card. That is my biggest worry. So right now, internet is broken. I mean, even the biggest company, Sony, you name the big company that should not be, should be safe and protected, and they have breakdown almost on a daily basis. As a software architecture and system architecture, I can tell you right now the internet itself, it's too broken, and that's why net neutrality is using legal way to enforce those things when we need a technology changes completely. My hope is in a blockchain and then owning your own privacy. So we are working on the Internet 3.0 on basically allowing people own their own ID, and you can bring your ID everywhere you go. So for example, this is just painting the future here. If you go to like Facebook or other website, there's a saying that log in with Facebook or log in with Google. Have you seen that? I think what we're going to see in the future is log in with, this is your identity. So everybody have their own identity, and you can take it anywhere you go. And if you decided not to use it, you can take it back. And this is done through using a blockchain technology and being ability to encrypt your data. So you can give them access, but when you don't want it to do, you can unlock it again and then take it back. And that's what I'm really excited about the future. And once we get to that part, then all of this big data are going to collapse, because then they have to ask your permission. It's going to cost money just to mine your data. Right now, we can mine your data any day in the world. But I think in the future, this is going to change the way we become more responsive, because of owning your data is not a requirement, is the fundamental on the internet.
That seems like a good place to end.
Thank you.
Before we thank Leon, I'd like to introduce his daughter here, who is the next generation entrepreneur. And Jade, do you want to say anything about what you're up to?
Hi, guys. Leon, it's so weird calling you Leon. My dad talks a lot about native brand and organic. I'm organic, so I do a lot of YouTube and Instagram. I build people's followers for influencers. And recently, I also am now consulting brands just like my dad's footsteps. So, yeah.
Thanks, Jade. Thanks, Leon. And I wanted to mention also, since many of you will be developing and launching products in Europe, there was a spot I told Leon last night on 60 Minutes on their attitude and their laws around privacy, which are very different than the US. So that's something in marketing globally, which sports companies do, you're going to need to be aware of. So if you want to take a clip at it, the young, very young gentleman who pursued increasing their vigilance around privacy and the teeth and the policies, it's a good spot just to catch. So thanks. Thank you, Leon.
Thank you.